This is Nightline and I'm Jana Muhammad Zaki. The top stories. Misbehavior of Indonesian supporters during clash with Malaysia. Jakarta issues apology. And Zimbabwean first post-independent leader Mugabe dies. Indonesia has apologized over the commotion which erupted during the tense Indonesia-Malaysia match at Gelora Bung Karno Stadium in Jakarta on Thursday night. The apology was made by Indonesia's Youth and Sports Minister Imam Nahrawi. The apology and expression of regret over the misbehavior of Indonesian squad supporters were conveyed by Imam during a face-to-face meeting with Youth and Sports Minister Syed Saddiq Syed Abdul Rahman. News of the meeting at a hotel in Jakarta was shared by Syed Saddiq on his Instagram account on Friday. Malaysia went head-to-head with the Garuda squad in the Group G match for the 2022 World Cup 2023 Asian Cup second qualifying round on Thursday night. But the showdown was marred by incidents of rioting by a portion of the 50,000 Indonesian fans. They also threw bottles, flares and pieces of metal from the upper section of the stadium onto Malaysian fans. The incident forced South Korean referee Ko Young-jin to stop play for almost 10 minutes when both teams were tied at 2-2. The match resumed once the situation was brought under control and Malaysia came from behind to score a dramatic 3-2 win over Indonesia, a triumph which saw the Harimau Malaya team earn 3 points from the game. Dr. Mahathir Mohamad was conferred the Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters from Doshisha University for his devotion to education and the rule of law. Doshisha University President Takashi Matsuoka said to Dr. Mahathir during his premiership from 1981 to 2003 had introduced the Look East policy that had not only seen more than 15,000 Malaysian students and trainees sent to Japan but also contribute to the nation building of Malaysia. Dr. Mahathir received the award from Matsuoka at a special conferment ceremony held at the university's Amherst House. Also present was Doshisha University Chancellor and Board of Trustees Chairman E.G. Hatta. The honorary doctorate is awarded to those who have made remarkable achievements in the progress of academic research, art and society both nationally and internationally.
Despite the challenges, Dr. Mahathir began institutional reform that include steps to further support the rule of law.
I hope that I will always try to live up to the honor that is given to me, that is to say, I should be humane in whatever things that I do. And I should try to serve my country and humanity.
Dr. Mahathir is the 68th recipient of the award in the university's 144-year history. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister also took the time to visit two companies, the Towa Corporation and Shimadzu Corporation, headquartered in Kyoto. Semiconductor Toa plans to invest 100 million ringgit to expand its operations in Batu Kawan, Pulau Pinang. During the 40-minute visit, the Prime Minister was briefed on the operations and direction of the company. Tun Dr. Mahathir ended the first day of his 3-day working visit to Kyoto by visiting Shimadzu Corporation, which produces precision instruments and medical equipment. The company, founded in 1875, has a manufacturing plant in the Sendayan Tech Valley in Negeri Sembilan since 2015. The government will be forming a special task force to study the alternative forms of punishment to the mandatory death penalty. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Datuk Liew Vui Keong, in a statement on Friday, said this was based on a cabinet decision made on August 29th. The task force will be chaired by a former Chief Justice, and its members will consist of a former Federal Court judge, a former Attorney General's Chambers official, a former Prisons Department official, representatives of the Bar Council and the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia, SUHAKAM, respectively, academicians and civil society members. The special committee will study and advise the government on replacing the death sentence. He said the government was taking proactive and careful steps by forming the committee to ensure that the alternative sentences are fair with the crime committed and take into account the implications and welfare of the victims. In October last year, Liew said the cabinet had decided to abolish the death penalty with a moratorium for those on death row. In March, however, Deputy Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Muhammad Hanifah Maidin, announced in Parliament that the government is proposing to introduce sentencing discretion for 11 offences under the Penal Code and Firearms Increased Penalties Act 1971, which currently carry the mandatory death penalty. Axiata Group Berhad and Telenor ASA have called off the proposed merger of their telecom and infrastructure assets in Asia. Axiata said the decision was due to some complexities involved in the proposed transaction of the deal. Its president and CEO, Tan Sri Jamaluddin Ibrahim, said Axiata will continue to explore possible consolidation and portfolio optimization opportunities. The parent companies of Celcom Axiata Berhad and Digi.com Berhad declined to comment further but did not rule out the possibility of a future transaction. Despite the cancellation, both companies still acknowledge the strong strategic rationale of the proposed transaction. Axiata's shares went up XX% to close at XX a piece, while Digi lost XX% to end the day at XX per share. The murder trial of Cradle Fund Chief Executive Officer Nazrin Hassan kicked off today, with the prosecution expressing confidence that it will prove that the technopreneur was murdered on June 14th last year. In the prosecution's opening statement on the first day of the trial at the Shah Alam High Court, DPP Datuk Raja Rosela Rajatoran said evidence will indicate that Nazrin did not die in a fire in the master bedroom of his home on the day he was found dead, adding that the deceased died before the fire happened. The DPP also said that the fire was intentionally created to hide the deceased's actual cause of death. In making the speech in front of Judge Abdul Karim Abdul Rahman, Datuk Raja Rosela said a second post-mortem conducted on Nazrin's remains upon his brother's request indicated that he died of blunt force injury to the head. She said the prosecution will also prove via the testimony of forensic medical specialists that the deceased's death was caused by blunt force trauma to the head, and this type of impact can generally kill the victim. In the dock are Nazrin's widow, Samira Muzaffar, aged 44, and her two teenage sons from a previous marriage, aged 14 and 17. In Friday's proceedings, the first witness was police photographer Corporal Mahadin Bakar, who testified that he had gone to the scene of the incident twice to take photographs upon the instruction of investigating officer ASP Muhammad Nizam Harun. The second witness, Corporal Nazrin Zakaria, also a police photographer, said he had also gone to the deceased's office in addition to his house. The police officer said the body, later identified as Nazrin Hassan, had blood that was still not dry when he took pictures of it at a house in Mutiara Damansara. He also testified that he saw the body in the corner of a bed in a room at the house. Earlier in the day, Abdul Karim ordered the charge to be read again before the trial started. Samira, the two teenagers, and Indonesian national Eka Wahyu Lestari, who is still at large, are accused of murdering the 47-year-old Nazrin at a house in Mutiara Damansara between 11:30 p.m. on June 13, 2018 and 4 a.m. on June 14, 2018. They were charged under Section 302 of the Penal Code, read together with Section 34 of the same code, which comes with the mandatory death sentence upon conviction. The two boys were granted bail of 50,000 ringgit with two sureties by the Shah Alam High Court in March, while the federal judge allowed Samira bail of 500,000 ringgit with two sureties in May. The hearing continues. The Customs Department has seized 21 non-registered luxury vehicles worth 12.2 million ringgit with suspected forged import documents. Its Deputy Director General, Dato' Azima Abdul Hamid, said this was the biggest seizure of luxury cars in the Klang Valley this year. The operation, based on intelligence and public tip-off, saw separate raids carried out on two warehouses in Shah Alam, Selangor on May 29. The seizure comprised 6 Lamborghini Huracan, 7 Toyota Velfire, 4 Toyota Estima, 2 Mercedes-Benz, a BMW and a Toyota Alphard. Initial investigation found that the vehicles were documented with false manufacturing date. The modus operandi of those involved was to reduce the amount of tax they have to pay to the customs because the older the cars, the lower the tax will be. This as the International Trade and Industry Ministry import license requirements only allowed for the importation of second-hand cars aged 1 to 5 years. The import documents of the 6 Lamborghini cars, for instance, declared that the vehicles were manufactured in 2012, but a check with the authorized dealers showed that the cars were actually manufactured in 2016. 2 car importers in Shah Alam have been identified as the owners of the 21 vehicles and currently being investigated under the Customs Act for alleged document forgery and tax evasion. In Johor, 2 drivers were killed after their vehicles collided on Jalan Parit Kuari, Pengarang in Batu Pahat. The accident occurred Friday morning when a lorry laden with sand collided with another lorry carrying cooking gas coming from the opposite direction. The gas tanks are believed to have caused the fire. Both Khairul Azrin Suhari, aged 26, and Rizairin Mubin, aged 32, who were found pinned to their lorries, died at the scene. In Perak, 2 men were burnt to death Thursday night, while another was seriously injured in an accident along the yet-to-be-completed West Coast Expressway WCE in Beruas. Their vehicle caught fire after crashing into heavy machinery parked by the roadside. Police said the 3 victims were believed to have trespassed into the construction site. The dead have been identified as R. Ari Garan and S. Mahendran, while the 3rd victim has yet to be identified and is currently receiving treatment at the Pantai Sri Manjong Hospital after sustaining serious injuries. Coming up after the break, Nightline's Auto segment. Stay tuned. Nightline continues with the Auto segment. BMW has taken another leap in attracting young executives to be part of its family with the introduction of the new X3. With over 2 generations of the X3, more than 1.5 million vehicles have been delivered to lead the segment all over the world. And the all-new BMW X3 is set to continue to write the next chapter in BMW's success story in the premium segment. Our very own Raymond Goh has the chance to test drive the interesting machine.
The X3's footprint has not changed by much. Sitting on the modular CLAR or cluster architecture platform that also underpins the G30 5 series. The G01 is 60 millimeters longer and 10 millimeters wider than before, with 54 millimeters of the newfound length going into the wheelbase for more legroom.
This is, after all, a 2-liter 4-cylinder twin-turbo engine. It's got 252 horsepower with a max torque of 350 Newton meters, and it's touted to sprint from a standstill to 100 kilometers per hour in just 6.3 seconds. Is that true? We'll test that later. And a top speed of 240 kilometers per hour. Is that true? We won't test that one.
For urban adventurers, the new X3's relatively high ground clearance of 204 millimeters may be good for speed bumps, while its fording depth of 500 millimeters may prove useful when confronted with light floods. Its overall weight is down by up to 55 kilograms over the previous gen F25, thanks to the increased use of aluminium in the engine and suspension components. Drive management is taken care of by the driving experience control switch that gives you 4 drive modes: Eco Pro, Comfort, Sport and Sport Plus.
Okay, we're at standstill now. It's time to switch from Comfort mode to Sport mode. And here we go. The dash changes. It was white when it was in Comfort. By the way, it's blue when it's in Eco. And now it's in red when it's in Sport mode. And what I like about Sport mode is your speedometer goes from 0, your next figure is 50, and then 100, 150, 200, and 260. No small messy numbers in between. That's what a Sport mode speedometer should look like. Your revs, of course, look just the same. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, all the way up to 7,000. That's your red line. And let's get going. Oops. Always wear your seatbelt. Okay, immediately you feel a difference in the pickup. It revs higher, quicker. Of course, the turbo kicks in. And it's just a smooth, powerful acceleration. I'm flooring it. Whoa-ho! Ah, this is how you drive a BMW.
The cargo area holds 550 litres, expandable to 1,600 litres, with the 40 to 20 to 40 rear seats folded. There are some neat compartments under the boot floor, including one specifically for the tonneau cover. The luxury line car comes with underbody protection in frozen grey and high-gloss chrome, 19-inch double-spoke alloys in ferric grey, LED headlamps with high beam assistant, and comfort access with contactless tailgate operation, among other things. Inside, the X3 is trimmed with Venasca leather with contrast stitching on the sports seats. Sensotec covered instrument panel with contrast stitching and dark oak wood trim strips with pearl chrome accent strips. Also standard are rear camera, park distance control, parking assistant auto parking, a 10.25-inch central screen, welcome light carpet, and BMW connected drive.
this suspension is set pretty nicely. It's kind of like the best of both worlds. So you still have that comfort when you are even in sport mode. Lovely to drive. I can understand why going through some of the not so smooth roads versus the highway, the comfortable ride is there. It's due to the McPherson strut suspension system on this BMW X3, which gives it a very nice supple ride. What I like about sitting in this position high up in the car is that you can actually see the bonnet in front of you and you can see the curves. Now that is something because normally you don't get to see your own bonnet. So the bonnet is a little long. What's the point of having a nice curve when you can only see it from the outside, right? You've got to be able to see your own bonnet and the nice curves from inside.
The X3 is available in 4 colors: Terra Brown, Black Sapphire, Glacier Silver and Alpine White. And there are 2 interior leather options, Venesca Black and Venesca Mocha. Raymond Goh for Nightline's Auto segment.
Catch the Auto segment every Friday on Nightline! Woo! Wow!
Coming up, more Brexit challenge for Boris Johnson. Don't go away. Welcome back. Robert Mugabe, Zimbabwe's first post-independent leader, has died nearly 2 years after he stepped down following 37 years in office. He was 95. His successor, Emmerson Mnangagwa, confirmed Mugabe's death in a tweet Friday, mourning him as an icon of liberation. He also confirmed Mugabe died in Singapore, where he has often received medical treatment in recent years. According to reports, Mugabe had been battling an undisclosed ailment, and following his humiliating fall from office, his stamina had seeped away rapidly. Mugabe, who ruled the southern African nation for nearly 4 decades since independence from Britain in 1980, was forced to resign in November 2017 after an army coup. He was initially feted as an African liberation hero and champion of racial reconciliation when he first came to power in a nation divided by nearly a century of white colonial rule. But over his decades in power, discontent grew about the southern African country's fractured leadership, and other problems prompted a military intervention, impeachment proceedings by the parliament, and large street demonstrations for his removal. The announcement of Mugabe's resignation after he initially ignored escalating calls to quit even triggered wild celebrations in the streets of the capital, Harare. In another development, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said on Friday he was not willing to contemplate resigning and has insisted that the UK will complete Brexit by the end of October, despite the stinging rebuke he received this week in Parliament. Speaking in Scotland, where he was unveiling fresh funding for farmers, Johnson said he'll go to Brussels or get a deal by using his powers of persuasion to ensure the UK leave the European Union. The Prime Minister also said that he had no plans to accept new legislation that would require him to write to the EU asking for a pointless delay to Brexit. Johnson's comments came as the Prime Minister faced a bruising week in which an alliance, including a group of Tory rebels, moved to block a no-deal Brexit. He has called for a general election, but the Labour Party has refused thus far to agree to such a measure.
The eyes to the right, 300...